What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another session of Coffee and Martial Arts. Salute, salute, salute. Cheers. Oh, yes. Yes, sir. Good coffee this morning, and also a very good collaborator. Not a guest anymore. Now he is a collaborator. It's the third time he's on the show, and actually he has agreed, I hope, to be here more often. No, he did. But anyway, he'll say that in a minute. So before we introduce to our, maestro today, Mr. Cooper, we're just gonna make the announcement, the usual announcements. Okay. Hold on a second. Here we are. Okay, so we are going live through our Facebook page, Master Frank Soto Kinetic Dragon. Okay. So look for the Kinetic Dragon on Facebook, okay? And please like the page or follow the page. That really helps us to promote these videos. Remember, we are here for you, okay? And also, we are going live through the International Hall of Fame of Argentina, okay? They are a group of published their magazine, Revista Internacional Hall of Fame of Argentina. You see right there, Senior Professor Carlos Willman from Argentina, a Kenpo guy, on the cover of this month's issue of the magazine, okay? They are a very interesting group of martial artists, very talented martial artists there, led by Master Juan Martín Álvarez. Saludos al Maestro Juan Martín. Thank you for letting us be a part of this nice and very good project, okay? We're also going live through our YouTube channel, okay? The Kinetic Dragon channel. Yes, sir, Kinetic Dragon. Okay, just type Kinetic Dragon. You'll find the group. Also, subscribe. Please subscribe. That really helps us a lot. And if you want get notifications, click on the little bell. If not, just subscribe. It won't hurt you. You won't get bugged or anything if you don't click on the bell. But if you like, please do so. That way you'll know when we are going live. Remember, we go live on Coffee and Martial Arts every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific Daytime, okay? That will be 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, I think that's the same time in Santiago de Chile, 3 p.m. Argentina, and I think it's 7 p.m. England, and 8 p.m. South Africa. Okay, so we got guys watching us there. So hello to everybody that is watching. Okay, so please like and share this video. That really helps. And don't forget to leave comments or ask questions. Okay, remember, we are here for you. And today we have a very nice topic. Okay, so let's bring in the man of the hour, the master of disaster. Yes, sir. Maestro Brye Cooper.
I don't know how to follow that, right? Yeah. Hello, everybody. How you doing, Frank? Good to see you this morning.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, got my. I know you got the coffee, and I am breaking the rules with a cup of tea, but
no, that tea is also good. It's also good. Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. It's always nice to have you here on the show, my friend. We always get these good conversations, whether we do them live or not, and it's always very interesting. I really dig, in what you have to say and share. I think we, like you mentioned it, we think alike in a lot of things about the art, and that's what we like to talk about today. But before we go, let's just say hello to some of the friends that are saying hi here. Monteneur, Florida says hello. Thank you, Florida.
Oh, glad to make it. Hello, Monsieur. Nice to see you again.
Maestro Patrick Kennedy, you're doing a great job for Kenpo Cert Part LTKK Ireland. Mr. Kennedy, I'm going to send you a message because I definitely want you as a guest on the show. If you're interested, please let me know. I will contact you, sir. Diego Andrés Salvucci, muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Master Soto, saludos from Buenos Aires. Thank you.
Yeah.
Montasser, Mr. Noor says, greetings, brother Brye Cooper. Thank you, Mr. Soto. Oh, thank you. Thank you. International Hall of Fame. Salud maestros from Casa de la Cultura, China, Chinese Culture House in Santa Fe, Argentina. Big hug from the heart, Sifu Ernesto Colbrenner. Saludos, Sifu, gracias. Okay, we see a familiar face here. Let's see. Maestro, Richie Matthews. Hi, sorry, can't watch teaching class. I'll catch the rerun. No worries, mate. Montasser says, good new schedule. That means you could be a guest on the Brotherhood.
Oh.
No, I don't. Same schedule, 11. I think, I don't know, man, but just invite me. I'll be there. Yes, whatever. I'll figure it out. Thank you. Yes. Anyway, okay. So, like I said, you are a part of the team now, my friend. Thank you. Much appreciated. So we don't have to do an interview of who you are or whatever. People already know you. They probably know you much more than they know me. So please, what do you have for us today, my friend? What do you want to talk about?
Well, what we were talking, but maybe what we were talking about the other day, actually, you and I, I'm speaking to the audience now, actually. We were discussing, Frank and I were discussing the other day, the progressions in Kenpo and where we're moving to, where we've come from and where we're moving to, and how, the face of the martial arts has changed over the last, for us. I mean, myself, I've been doing this almost 40 years, and I know you've been doing it a very long time too, and how we were discussing how, we have to adapt to that environmental change in the way we teach and the approach we have to the combatives and stuff like that. So if anybody has any questions on that, or if you do, that's where we're at this morning. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that we were talking about was how to adapt Kenpo, not just to the new environment, but also, let's see, let me change. I think we have a little bit of echo here. Is that better?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we were talking about not just bringing Kenpo into the new environment, meaning the street and the self-defense and stuff, but also how to get to the new generation, right? What they're asking for, what they're demanding for, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like we were saying the other day, I mean, it took me a while to recognize that. I mean, because obviously you can tell by the white in my beard, I'm in the 50s now, and teaching today is completely, one has to teach completely different today than you and I when we first came in, simply because of the technological changes, the educational, how kids are educated today, and their relationships to technologies and so on and so forth. And the one of the things that I noticed, like I said, it took me a while. It was only a couple of years ago that I felt like I was not getting through. Well, not getting through, but it was more difficult than it was for me when I was coming up for them to translate the message that I was giving or teaching.
Right.
And then I realized, well, that's not them, that's me. I have to adapt now. We all have to adapt now because it is completely different. I mean, I look at these kids, I call them kids, but if you're in your 20s, to me, you're a young man, a young woman, your kid they think differently.
Right.
And so I think from that technological, this is one of the points we were going over anyway. They come from that technological world of it's very quick, and they need that data impinged on them really fast because their attention span, I find, is not quite as it was with us. There's many reasons for that, but one of the main reasons, obviously, being is like the technology,
Right.
And so to look at that then and then go, well, so how are we teaching now? And how do we capture their minds the way ours got captured through the written word? Because, like I said, everything's technological now. Oops, I thought that was a scroll. Was a message. So, like what you and I were touching on is like now one has to look at it in a unit at a time and go, okay, well, we need to reprogram it now, or we are, like you and I were saying, the programmers now. So, what kind of program, what kind of software are we going to give them?
Right.
And I think we need to. It's important to start if this makes sense to people, it's important to start looking at that. If I'm sure a lot of people are already doing it, but it starts to look at that and how does that apply in a combatives from a combatives application? How do you get into somebody's psyche to give them the ability to perform at optimum in the 21st century? Well, you have to use 21st century methods.
Of course.
And I think the methods that I learned anyway were not 21st century methods. They were probably early mid 20th century methods. And so because everything's moving at a faster pace.
Right.
To see, that might not be quite as practical anymore. Now, that being said, don't get me wrong. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, I was sharing the thing on the internet. But anyway, I was listening, and I think one of the important things that you just mentioned, and I think that's the key, it's instead of trying to change the generations, right? Instead of trying to change the student, it's easier for you to adapt. I mean, it's easier. It's not easy, right? I mean, it takes some effort because you need to start thinking in a different way, right? You need to start solving the problems and start understanding what the new generations are looking for, like you said, and what motivates them, right?
Exactly. And also, too, I think that we did, people like me and yourself who become a bit more progressive in it and looking, because it is a growing, we're talking specifically about Kenpo right now, of course, but this applies to any art, The jiu-jitsu of 100 years ago is not the jiu-jitsu we see today. We didn't have MMA for a start, so that had to be adapted to the striking ground game as well. So everything progresses. But that being said, I just want to make it clear that I'm not saying that those old methods or old curriculums are null and void. They're absolutely not. It's important to have a standard curriculum that we're all strictly adhered to, because that gives you your base. That gives you a base to work from, and from which each individual grow the system. But we've grown. I feel, and this is just my opinion, I feel that the system hasn't really grown at the speed, a particle flow that we have today with technologies and stuff like that. And I think we need. I try a different teaching approach that moves it a little bit quicker.
Well, if we see it, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is I think you're pressing on something important here. If we see the environment, the martial arts scene, right, the worldwide scene, right, we see that Kenpo, it's not there anymore the way we want it to.
Exactly. The way we would like you.
Yes,
you and I, I'm going to go out. This is just my opinion, or the way I think it should be. And I think if Mr. Parker was still alive today, because we're talking about American Kenpo,
right?
He would agree. That we've all seen the quotes. The perpetual, it should be perpetual. This art needs to be perpetual changing. Otherwise, I've failed. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And so, I think what for me, I'm speaking like saying as myself. I felt like we were just stuck in a certain. Now, that being said, there are innovators in Kenpo who have done that.
Of course.
Predominantly those who have done it on a more, maybe for the military or for that kind of approach, or a non-civilian approach. And I don't feel like Kenpo in your dojo has adapted to the environment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm in a complete world today.
And also
to change.
Right. And also I'm not saying it from a wrong critical, platform. What I mean is we have other systems like Krav Maga, Russian Sistema, Silat, the Filipino arts that are way more popular than Kenpo. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
People will see to those systems first than Kenpo. And that's the reality we have right now. And we need to change that. It's up to us, the instructors and the promoters, to change that. That's what I mean. And I'm not saying that those arts are better, because to me they're not. Of course, I'm a Kenpo guy, right? Right?
Yeah.
So at least let's just say we are at the same level, but marketing wise and in popularity, we're not.
And then so what's the why of that? Because people look at it and go, but it's not effective anymore. Well, it is. It's just you're not affecting it. It doesn't work. It does. You're just not working it. And so then we go, well, why is an individual not working it per se? Because you don't quite understand. I feel like we got left behind. If we don't get the information that we need to enhance it, or if we weren't getting I wasn't from some people getting the information. I think one of the main things for that is it's training techniques is all it is. I mean, a punch is a punch, a kick's a kick. We know that, an arm bar's an arm bar. If you do, if you grapple or a choke's a choke, whatever. But what has to change is in Kenpo, in my opinion. Well, it doesn't have to. It's up to you. I mean, I just do it this way. Is your approach to your teaching, your mental and physical approach to the teaching. For example, like when I came up in Shotokan, let's say, because that was my first art, and we were just talking about earlier. It was very, it was very structured, of course, and that's important.
Right.
And then you would do your sparring, and that was good, but it was geared more towards the sparring. You know what I mean? Whereas American Kenpo, because it's a self-defense, was geared more around the self-defense techniques and so on and so forth. But we've trained for years. We'll do a technique line, let's say, which I'm not a big fan of. Not because it's not fun. It's just I'm talking about training students now, because you just line up in a line and somebody will call a technique and we'll do it. You'll go to the back and so on and so forth. And there's a reason for that. Obviously, it's just a bit of fun at the end of the thing. But on the mat, when we practice our techniques, like for example, we'll step in with a left punch, right punch, and then that's it. And you'll do repeating mace, reversing mace if it's a left, or if it's 5 swords, it might do 5 swords or whatever. But you're fighting against inanimate objects per se. They're not giving you any resistance. Well, those people show up with their own agenda. They're not inanimate. They're not inanimate in here. They showed up with a strategy, even if it's just a flash incident, because the mind works so fast. In a flash incident, if we're trained or not, if you just know if you're gonna hit somebody, and obviously you're a fighter or you want to fight, it's so quick. Then boom, and there's no way that you can pull off the static tech training that you've been doing in the dojo, in my opinion, in the dojo. Now, Street Combatives is a self-defense system. I have merged the hybrid into American Kenpo too, for people who want to do that. But because it's a self-defense system, we use the word self-defending, but it's not really defending because you have to attack the attack, right? Because it's that, I train it to nullify that before it happens, if that makes sense. To nullify, it happens in me where I've got to think about something because I've spent so many years doing it a certain way that on the street, if it comes at me, I don't quite have the correct, I might have a reflex action and if somebody comes, I might be able to just move and do my thing. But what happens on the follow-ups? Because that guy doesn't know I know Kenpo. He's coming at me at full speed with his mass. How do I stop the mass? How do I stop the man? Well, unless you train that way, you're not going to do it. How do I adapt? Well, like I said, for me, it's the first consideration is the mental considerations is how do I retrain my mind now to handle that physicality that's coming at me, because we've seen it so many times before. And I think I talked about this the first time we spoke, or maybe on the podcast, is my motivation for that was the article I read 30 years ago almost in Black Belt saying, I'm a 3rd-degree black belt and I got into an altercation, got my butt kicked, and I'm so disappointed, and the art doesn't work. And he wasn't a Kenpoist, this guy. I remember that much. It was a long time ago, but I thought, no. That's because your training approach is different. You can't go into the military, and I'm not military, but you can't go into the military and be trained like we train and expect to be able to be effective if it comes to the real thing. Now, that said, you can if you put years in. If you're a white to black belt and you love doing it like we did, and of course, eventually you're going to be able to do that. But if you want somebody to be effective, when you walk into a dojo or into a studio to learn a self-defense system, you want to be able to walk out of there within an hour or two going,
right.
I can handle it.
Are you touching your mic?
No.
I think you are when you're moving your hands, because sometimes it sounds like
Oh, you know what? There's paper in front of me. Let me put it over here. How's that? I
yeah,
had pieces of paper. So yeah. It's better.
yeah, probably better. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, and one thing you just mentioned, and I think it's important. It's the non or the compliant partner, right? When you throw a technique, you throw a punch like 5 swords, and the person stays that we dummy up for the person. You're dumbing up, right? And there's nothing wrong with it as long as you see it as one tool of training. Like,
yeah,
to start, it's okay, but then you need to start adding resistance, start doing what is called stress inoculation, right? And adding variables and building up with the resistance, right? Because one of the things that I do see, and I think you're gonna have some ideas at this, is when we practice self-defense in Kenpo, we do the techniques, right? 5 swords, thundering hammers, whatever. But when we want to put them into freestyle or sparring, we don't do the techniques, right? We only do the basic stuff, the kicking and punching, and probably some foot maneuvers or whatever. But you don't see any techniques, right? So how do you close that gap, right? And that has to do with training. It doesn't have to do with the art, right? Like you said, it's how you deliver it. How do you? That's what it needs to be changed, right? Or become more progressive.
I think you're telepathic, mate, because I wrote something down this morning about that, and I'll just read it real quick because I wrote it to articulate this, and let me just read this real quick, and it will help because I just we only have a short amount of time, and I don't want people to get. I might be a bit sort of going all over the place, but when you spar, one has to differentiate between the two: sparring and fighting. Actually, sparring, fighting, and self-defense techniques. You don't want to be in a fight per se when you're self-defense. You want it over. You want it move, nullify, dominate, incapacitate, to do all that. Well, if you focus a lot on sparring, and it's important, by the way, it is important. But if you're focusing, one of the reasons I feel like people don't put the techniques in self-defense techniques in sparring, well, 2 reasons. One, you can't, because you're going to hurt somebody. You know what I mean? And so there's one differentiation right there. I mean, people say, oh, no, one complements the other. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Sparring is good for you, of course. Why? Because you're fighting against an animated object. Which I was saying before was in self-defense techniques, you're not really fighting it. Do they stop? You're fighting it, so you never know what they're going to do next. Where the problem lies is if you're training one way and then expect to put that into the other without having a conceptual understanding of one, how to do it, or putting the time in, and which most people don't if they're doing self-defense. They don't want to learn sparring. They want to learn how to defend themselves. Defending yourself is not sparring with somebody. That's a fight. I don't want to be in a fight. Not now. For me, I'm getting older. Not that we can't handle ourselves, but it's like now I have a different viewpoint on it now.
And also,
when you were young,
if you're in a fight, you're giving the other person an opportunity to hurt you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know it intellectually because we all have inherent survival instincts, right?
Right.
And it's probably the reason why many drift into other arts from Kenpo. Is what I'm touching on is because it doesn't work. I mean, for me, I started doing jiu-jitsu when I was doing it because I went, oh, that's interesting. I can't defeat. One of the black belts, I told you this before, at Albert Canejos we were training at, is a black belt jiu-jitsu, he's black belt now, Leo Maguera, and he would come in and teach. And you got on the ground with him, I was like, how do I defeat that? You know what I mean? So I started training that too. And
sure.
But that also changed my viewpoint. It didn't change my viewpoint that Kenpo didn't work because years before, I think I told you a story. Somebody tried to tell me the tripping arrow didn't work. A jiu-jitsu player was a jiu-jitsu black belt now, and he goes, "So we're changing it." I'm like, "Well, let me see." And then it does work. You're not working it. But just real quick, so we have that. So it's probably the reason it's just about jiu-jitsu precisely because the forces you deal with are animated and motivated. in the opponent. Self-defense training should be differentiated from sparring simply because of the rules of engagement. The rules of engagement are different. It is not a fight in the general public's, as in the general public's understanding. It's not fisticuffs. It's a point that can't be overlooked, and this is a point that can't be overlooked if you are to be operate at maximum. You know, at that to perform at optimum. So we have to differentiate that, and then you go, okay, well then how do we get our training so it's animated and moving without actually doing distance sparring? Because that's what differentiates sparring in Kenpo and karate anyway, not in grappling, obviously, because it's a contact sport. It's grappling art. That's what differentiates us, is that distance.
Right.
So we're able to move. It's like either that or boxing. You're in the ring. You move. You have rules of engagement. In self-defense, which Kenpo is. American Kenpo was a self-defense system. It's not a freestyle system. It's not a sparring system. Don't get me wrong. There's some fantastic players who come out over the years, but
sure.
You know, again, they've been training for years and years and years, and because they've been training for years, they've been able to become MMA in it and incorporate the two. But for your average person that walks in the dojo or walks into your studio who wants to learn self-defense, it's important from the get-go that you impinge onto them, not even verbally, just in the training, that right. There is a difference between the two. And if you don't, they'll just do the techniques over and over and over and over again. And then we've all seen it, you know, and then something will happen on the street and it won't work for you. And again, it's not because it doesn't work. It does work. It's very effective.
Oh yeah,
it's
I agree.
It's just you're not working it in your training. You don't quite have the conceptual understanding. What Mr. Parker touched on, by the way. I mean, this was all he put all in this book. Said go out, and we've talked about this before, which is why I did it, and I'm sure it's why you've developed Kinetica and stuff, because we got to think out the box.
Right.
But
it doesn't take anything away from Kenpo.
No, not at all. That's my base.
With adding.
I have been around, fortunately, and I know you have too, some fantastic Kenpo practitioners and teachers. Some of them, you know, combatives, former military, and train that, and it's like it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening, and so if once one understands that, then one understands that, like, well, it's no longer that what they call that dojo ballet, that patty cake Kenpo. You know what I mean? You have to train people like people train in jiu-jitsu. They don't train for a half Americana. They don't train for a half submission or a tap. They don't train for a half choke. You're fucking getting choked out. You're getting tapped. Or if it's for real, you're getting your arm broken or the shoulder dislocated or something, right? Well, we don't train that way. Why? Because you can't hit somebody like that.
We can't.
Without hurting them.
Right.
There's a limit, because that's conditioning. You have to be conditioned, of course, because you do need to take the shots. That is part of the lesson.
Oh, yeah.
You can't break noses and jaws, and people got to go to work and stuff like that. So what do we have to do? Well, then you have to train the mind. You have to train the mind in such a way that when that does go down, there's no Q&A on it. The decision is, pop, and you've just gone, boom. You'll attack the attack. You don't defend an attack. What's the point? Why am I going to get on the back foot? Even if I'm stepping back, because even stepping back in our Kenpo techniques, which are just obviously ideas anyway, you know, even if I'm stepping back, it's not a retreat. It's just a foot maneuver. My stepping back is actually an attack. You just don't realize it because we haven't made contact yet. So I think it's important to train that and put it. It doesn't have to be what I do. You can come up with your own drills and your own techniques and stuff like that. But it has to. I believe it has to come from that foundation. Has to be the mental foundation. Has to come from that viewpoint of like this is not a fight.
I think that's actually very, very important to teach the students that on the street you're not fighting, you know. And I still hear this: Kenpo is the art and science of street fighting. It's not anymore. Maybe it was, but it's not anymore, because on the streets you shouldn't fight. It should be the art and science of self-defense, or street self-defense, if you may, right? But you shouldn't think in terms of fighting. First of all, at least here in Mexico, fighting on the streets, it's illegal. right? You're going to go to jail or you're going to go to court. So, okay, that will be the first thing. And the other thing is, like you said, you don't want to fight. You don't want to equal yourself with the attacker. You want to get, gain the advantage and control the situation. And like you said, nullify or whatever, whatever tactics you have, but you want to control that aggression and control and solve the problem, basically, right?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And that just we'll clarify that for people too. It's a fight per se, but it's not a fight as I wrote here, is the general public's view of it, where it's like, come on, man, bang, bang, bang. I mean, it might end up being that way. God, you don't want it to be that way because you haven't trained that way, unless you've trained for it, of course. But it's not a fight. It is a fight, but the fight is in here. The fight is in here. You have the fight, and that fight should already have been done.
I think
you're trained. Does that make sense?
I think maybe a better term. It's not a fight; it's a struggle. Up here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a great book actually, and it's not for everybody, obviously, but I read this book and I think it's great. It explains it really well. Maybe I'll send it to you. It's on the Marine Corps on warfare, and it's a fantastic book. Somebody actually posted, I think it was Zachary Carter, who I've never met, but I've seen him on different things. He posted, I've mentioned it to you the other day, about, I'm going to paraphrase it now, but you don't want to overload people with too many techniques in Kenpo, or if you're in warfare, you don't want to get too much stuff going on because it will nullify. You want to keep it simple. And so by the time you keep it simple, by the time you come to combat, it should be simple. Like I said, the fight happens prior to that, but the fight should be, you've got to fight against your old ideas and viewpoints on what it is.
Right.
And most people have never been in a street confrontation. I'd say 90% around the world of martial artists and people who train have never been in a real fight. Now, I'm not talking about like on the playground when we were kids or growing up when we were teenagers, or they've never been in a real fight per se. Or what I should right on to that. I've never seen violence at the extreme.
Yeah.
Now, it just, I'm not saying violence at the extreme. I'm not trying to be like scare anybody or say, somebody's going to slash you up or do all this. And violence to somebody who's never had a fight. Extreme violence is just getting punched in the face. It fucks you up psychologically.
Sure.
If you've never took it before, you don't know how to handle it. It's going to screw you up, and your mind's already racing.
You know what Tyson said about that, right? Everybody has a plan. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
It is true. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I boxed when I was younger, and the first fight I ever had, I think I might have told you this. My trainer at the time, his name was Tommy Jones. He was a former pro and boxer, heavyweight boxer. And this is when I was living in Jersey. And I started training with him. He started training me, he took a liking to me and stuff. And, we would train alone and blah, blah, blah. I thought, I'm great. And then he took me over to Jersey Leone's, which is a boxing club in Jersey. Started boxing training in there. And I went, the first night I was flying out to Jersey for my first fight, which is another island off in the Carolinas in Great Britain. And I ran over to Tommy's and I went to this, and I went upstairs. He lived above this nightclub. He was a head doorman, and I said, "Oh, Tommy, I just wanted to see you before I go for my fight tomorrow." And he was cooking. I never forget it. It was a great lesson. He was at the stove and he just turned to me, looked at me, goes, "Best thing that can happen to you is you get beat." And I went, "Oh, okay." Well, I was a young man. I was like 21, something like that. 20. I said, "Oh, all right, okay. Well, blah blah." Anyway, so I fly out to Jersey and I get in the ring, and everybody, I thought it was pretty good. You know what I mean? I was healthy. I was loving my Kenpo, and I thought, I can do this. So I get in the ring and the bell goes, and I came out, and I remember this guy was kind of tall, skinny. I fought at 142. I was very skinny then. He came out and he just goes, boom, straight jab right in the nose, put me on the back foot, right into the corner, on the ropes, and he just bang, bang, bang. Now I recovered and went on, and he ended up winning the fight. I thought I won, and everybody else did all the whatever, but it doesn't matter. It was my first fight, and I went back to, I went back. I flew back to Jersey, and I thought about it. I thought about what he said to me. The best thing that happened to you is you get beat. I didn't understand it at the time, And I do now, and I did then after a while, and I do now. It's like, you need to have your viewpoint changed of what this is. It's not dojo ballet. It's not running around a boxing gym, skipping rope, listening to music, bang, like sparring and all that. No, when you're in a fight and that person's trying to knock you out,
trying to hurt you,
it will throw you off mentally. Now, you could be physically tough and mentally tough, or strong-willed, because that's all the fight is, or that's all the conflict is. Just people with two wills, trying to impose their wills on each other.
That's right.
It will throw you off if you haven't prepared for it mentally. And so that's what, I know we're going a long way around it. That's where I feel like we've lacked in Kenpo, and we've lost a bit of our pride in it, because we go, oh, well, now if I do that, try and do that.
That's it. The pride. Yes. And people will say pride, oh, that's bad. No, I think pride, it's important to a certain level. But that's what I'm just gonna say something here, because I was pissed at Kenpo for a while. I was pissed at the art, and I'm going to tell you why. It's funny, and now that I think about it, I thought, oh, that was stupid. But anyway, I was pissed when I saw, for example, the jiu-jitsu guys. They have this pride, right? Yeah. And in a way, us Kenpo guys kind of lost that. In a way,
huge
I'm not talking about everybody, right? But it went down a little bit, because the thing that I was pissed is that I wasn't there in the golden era of Kenpo back in the 70s and 80s, right? When that pride was still there, right? Because that pride was there, definitely there. And then jiu-jitsu came, and they have all that, we beat everybody pride, right? And I'm thinking, no, you don't. No, you don't, right? Maybe you do on the ring and in the cage. Sure, we'll give you that for sure. But on the streets, you don't beat everybody. That's not true, because you cannot say that. I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is not effective. You just cannot think in absolutes, because if you do, if you get your ass kicked on the street, you're going to get confused. So you cannot think in absolutes. You got to be ready for that. Like you said, like your instructor, your boxer coach said to you, the best thing that could happen to you is, right, to get beaten, right? So you need to understand that you're not invincible, right? And one of the things that made me change that as well was when I started to use firearms. When you go and play with firearms a little bit, like training, the mindset changes, because then you realize I'm not that tough. I'm not that invincible.
It's a reality check, isn't it?
Yeah. And that also happens when you get beat up on the street. If you get into a situation, and I always tell people, if you haven't felt violence, like you said, if you haven't felt somebody who's trying to eat you, right, to freaking hurt you, like an animal, and you haven't felt that, I'm just telling you that, and I feel this, right? If you haven't felt that, and I'm not saying you should go and look for it. No, I'm not saying that. But if you haven't felt that, that's also a reality check there. Let me just bring some comments here before we continue with this, because we have people saying hello. Vladimir da Silva Javier, saludos desde Brazil. Oh, salud. Thank you. Mr. Mech, the man. Brye is the man. Wow.
You too. Salutations, my friend.
Thank you. Master Juan Martin Alvarez, salud, teachers from Argentina. An honor to see you here. Thank you, sir. Gracias, maestro. Chris Lullen Havas, a big hello from Denmark. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, sir. Salud. Luis Gonzalez, salud from Buenos Aires. Saludos, maestro. Maria Lopez, great show. Salud from Argentina. Big hug. Gracias. Saludos. Abrazo grande. Martin Perez, congratulations for your broadcast. Thank you, sir. Gracias. Selleidos, South America. Emmy, saludos. Salud, my dear friends from South America. Thank you, sir. Oh, here's another familiar face. Marcel de Jong. Best thing is getting beaten. Great story, Brye. Thank you. Nice. Okay. So,
You know, it's interesting when I'm telling that story. I think I might have probably told this one too on the. I can't remember, on the shows, but the same thing. When I started training jiu-jitsu, I was at the Gracie Academy, and when you get your blue belt, they allow you to go into the master class and so on and so forth. And so it's very like, oh, cool, I'm in, you know what I mean? And that's really when your training starts, to be quite honest with you. It's different now. They've changed the curriculum, I believe, a little bit, because I haven't been there for a while because I had injuries and knee replacements and stuff anyway. But hopefully I'll be able to get back over there soon. Now I'm healing up. But when I got into the master class, Huron was teaching, Huron Gracie, and I can't remember what techniques we were doing and so on and so forth, but he said, all right, pair off, blah, blah. And we hit the deck, and I was training with this other blue belt who actually was more advanced blue belt than me, good guy, and we're rolling around, we're just playing around. Oh, excuse me, actually. One of the things he said to me before, when I got into the class, is he pulled me aside, he goes, all right, Brye, it was my first class, he goes, listen, tap. Just tap, 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 tap. Learn from it. In other words, is what he's saying. So it was the same thing, you know what I mean? And I think that's important for all arts, is to like feel what it feels like to be dominated. Do you know what I mean? Because the difference is, I was just saying here, is that you just go back real quick. We were talking about how when people started drifting off was back probably in the early 2000s. Not drifting off, but putting more people who were doing Kenpo 5, 6, 7 times a week. We're now doing it maybe 2, 3 times a week, or if they weren't doing it still, 3 or 4, they were doing the jiu-jitsu and other things they picked up, predominantly jiu-jitsu because it's been huge, either just an equal amount of time or more. And they weren't even at a point, in my opinion, at a point of complete conceptual understanding of how they were supposed to be applying Kenpo. And so those two things got mixed up. And so you find it because one's working for you, which would be the jiu-jitsu or whatever, they sort of drifted away. And we've had a few people over there just stopped training jiu-jitsu. And then there were people who tried to hybrid it and stuff. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it needs to be differentiated. And it's like you can't really go start 5 swords and then do a takedown into an armbar. I mean, what's the point? It doesn't make any sense to me. If I'm hitting you with 5 swords, you're not getting up. No. You're not getting up. Hopefully. I don't want to go if I go to the ground, then we'll do jiu-jitsu. But, why am I training my Kenpo to do jiu-jitsu at the end of it?
I think
so. It was a huge red flag back then. And it wasn't addressed, in my opinion. Maybe because the people at the time who were teaching us were probably my age now. And so they were still kind of young, and they came up with under Mr. Parker and so on, and they were sticking to it, and they missed it. I didn't miss it. I went, this is a huge red flag. People don't believe in this system anymore. And that will spread like wildfire. Now, don't get me wrong, get people out there. Of course, we love our system. And again, I'm a Kenpoist. That's my foundation.
Wait. But there's a very important point here. People don't believe at the system anymore. And I'm telling you, I'm going to say something. 5, 6 years ago, we did a lot of YouTube videos. Me and my good friend Hector. Yeah, and one of the things we said in those videos was that Kenpo techniques didn't work on the street. And we said that on purpose, okay? Mm-hmm. What we meant was you have the ideal face, and you have to go, like Mr. Trejo used to say, God rest his soul, he used to say, from the ideal to the real deal, right? Right. So that's what we meant. It's not that that Kenpo doesn't work on the street, it's that you got to make it work on the street. It's not the system problem, it's the individual. But I knew what was going to happen, and people, sure enough, I start getting, emails and comments saying, why do you say that Kenpo doesn't work? I never said that, right? I wouldn't say that. I'm a Kenpo guy, right? What I was trying to do is to make you think, right, for yourself, because Kenpo is about empowering the individual, right?
That's all lots of individual art, thing.
Right. Yeah. So you get the tool, you get empowered by it, and then you could solve any problems. But we can only teach you the studio or the dojo or the gym approach, but you have to be responsible to put it on the street, because the instructor is not going to be there with you if you get into a fight or a situation. It's most likely, right? I mean, you're not going to be walking around with your students all the time, right? So you need to make it work. So I think that's very, very important. And another problem that I get to see, and now that we're talking about this, is people questioning Mr. Parker. And I think that's another problem. I mean, I'm not saying you cannot question the man, but first of all, he's not here to defend himself. You're questioning a person that passed away almost 31 years ago, over 30 years ago, and you're questioning videos, partial videos that you see on YouTube, very small material, when you see him mostly talking. And then people will say, he used to talk a lot of seminars. Yes, in a 6-hour seminar, he will talk for like an hour or 2 hours, and that's what you see on video. You're not going to see everybody training because it's too long. Of course, what you're going to see in the video on YouTube is the stuff where he was talking, right? It's not that he talked all the time, right? And the other things is you see like, oh, see, he didn't move that well. I got to see this guy the other day, and I got pissed, criticizing Mr. Parker for one video he did back in the 60s. And I'm just thinking, and then of course I went on to see the videos of this guy on the internet, and I saw the guy videos, and I'm like, really? You have the nerve to criticize the man? You should go back to train, you know? And that's the thing. I mean, why badmouth the creator of your system? See, I've never talked badly about Mr. Parker. I'm very grateful to the man.
My opinion on that is, if you're bad mouthing it, it's because you don't understand it. You didn't get the training. You didn't get a lesson.
Because
how many people mouth Mr. Parker who weren't even training in Kenpo?
That's exactly the point. See, the new generations, we never met the man. You had the privilege. We didn't. I never met the man. So
you have to be, you know. Look, let's be clear. Before Mr. Parker, American Kenpo system. Well, there was no American Kenpo before he made. There was Kenpo. There was no American Kenpo.
Right.
It was a new idea. It was true. Would you say the same thing about Bill Gates' Windows 95? I mean, it's ridiculous. Everything grows. You know what I mean? They were experiments. The thing about American Kenpo is what was the key word here is innovation.
Yes.
Bruce Lee got the same flack. People would say, I read an article by Yip Man, an interview with Yip Man from many years ago, and he was talking about how Bruce had come back to Hong Kong because Yip Man was his first Wing Chun instructor, and he was talking about how Bruce would come back and he said, it's hard. I'm paraphrasing, but it was hard for him to get the message across in Jeet Kune Do, what he was trying to do. And that's probably, you know, obviously why Mr. Parker and him, I would imagine, I don't know, but had that connection because they were both innovators out of the original systems they'd learned.
Right.
And so, you know, just again, sorry, because you know me, I'll go off on a tangent, so that's why I wrote these notes down. But, you know, there was no American Kenpo. Ed Parker's American Kenpo was conceptualized, developed, and put into practice, all while perpetually changing up until his death. And he wanted it to continue. It's constantly changing. What will never change is the scientific, physical, and mental constituents within the human environment that are addressed in the original Ed Parker Kenpo karate. So if anybody's saying, bad-mouthing it and saying he doesn't know what he's doing or blah, whatever they were saying to you, no, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't even know how to articulate what you're saying. It's forever growing. Again, I'll use that analogy again. Would you say to Bill Gates today that Windows 95 was or DOS? You know, DOS. Let's go back to DOS because we were using these computer analogies the other day. Program. Well, DOS is completely different than, you know, the operating systems we have today, and yet it's still what based on the same binary.
Right. And besides that, and I think Mr. Parker, it was never about himself. You know, he always said, you always call it our art, right? It was about everybody else. So
it's the individuals that come together. Like I say, you need you have a strict, it should be strict curriculum, not strict in how you perform as the power of choice and self-determinism is paramount always. You have to be able to be you. I can't be you. You can't be me, because if I'm trying to fight like you, I'm not free fight. I say fight, but if I'm trying to move like you, I'm not going to move very well, because somewhere in the back of my head, I'm thinking about you, or it could be Mr. Tatum, or it could be Mr. Pick, or anybody you've had influence who've influenced you over those people who've influenced me in Kenpo, who influenced me over these. If I'm thinking I've got to be like that, I'm not gonna perform an optimum, because somewhere in here I'm still trying to be. I have to be me.
Yes.
So,
and Bruce Lee said that.
Yeah,
Bruce Lee said that. The hardest thing, Bruce Lee said it in an interview. The hardest thing for a martial artist is to be honest with himself.
Right. And the reason, and of course, it's ego, right? What is ego really? What pushes our ego majority of times in martial arts? I mean, there's different ego for different situations and context. Ego in martial arts is fear, in my opinion. It's fear-based.
Sure.
And what happens
is there to cover fear, to you know.
I don't want to be found out, and so I'm going to diss somebody else, or I'm going to say it doesn't work, or I'm going to change this technique over that. Well, fear is not a bad thing.
No.
You're afraid, and that just says you need to become unafraid, and the only way to do that is through knowledge and experience.
Yes.
You know, go aside. And I go on the shooting. I was training with this group, tactically training, bringing up firearms, and this was a couple of years ago now. You know, we've had COVID and stuff. And one of the things, we get on the on the range, and we're going to be doing running, doing drills, and of course you go through the safety protocols. And one of the things the guy said, and I didn't start saying this actually. The guy who's teaching is a guy named Brian Wang. He teaches a Monarch Defense. His company's Monarch Defense out in San Jose. And he said to everybody, all the students, that he goes, blah 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 blah. He goes, and most importantly, be prepared to be embarrassed. Like, if you fuck up, we're going to let you know, in other words, because it's important. It's important to fail. It is. It's like, you go, oh, fuck yeah, I fucked that up. Not to go, no, I didn't do that. I got into an altercation. The guy threw a right punch at me, and, I tried that 5 swords thing, and I got clipped. And the next thing, I'm on the floor, and I beat him, and, but it took a while. Well, instead of saying that, or I had to change it to beat him, why don't you just look at it and go, fuck no, what did I do there? What did I do wrong? It's okay to get smacked. It's ego that goes, oh, I hope nobody was looking. At my age, I still get, especially as we get older, you got to get hit more, especially if you're just playing around, fighting just for fun. You're going to get tagged more, because these people that are younger people that have more, they're more athletic than you know what I mean? But you still learn from it, and you go, you get it tagged, and you go, okay, that's interesting. Let me try. I won't tell anybody. I'll be moving. I'll be, oh God, these guys, mate, but they're all moving the same way. You know what I'm an older guy, so I'm going to slide step, use foot maneuvers, and bang, shoot that side kick, bang, and it's in. That's the dragon obvious. That's wisdom. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if I had succumbed to fear and ego, I would never challenge myself. I would never challenge myself and get back in there and try and learn what the why of it. Why did I do this? Why did I? Just real quick, because I know we're running out of time. I just want to touch on something you were saying earlier. We were talking about mental stress and stuff like that. Well, we don't really have that in Kenpo. On your average Kenpo dojo, as all dojos and studios should be a safe environment. Don't get me, even a firing range is a safe environment. Nobody wants to hurt anybody. But we know, and let's be honest, in the back of our minds, how unless it's some rogue player who just wants to teach you a lesson, or just you're not really going to get hurt per se, and there's no physical, mental stress there, nothing. Well, when you go into start training in jiu-jitsu or something, again, I know I keep bringing up but just the value to me. When you go and train in that, you get that mental stress immediately because you're pinned down. You have to figure it out while you're being. I remember somebody's first time I was doing a acting play in 1997, and one of the actors there was training with what's his name? The Gracie fighter. He used to famous Gracie fighter.
Hickson.
Hickson. He was training with Hickson in here out in LA, and we were in the green room waiting to go on. And then he goes, "Hey, well, I'm talking. I do Kenpo, you do this." I said, "Oh yeah, okay. Well, let me show you." And this is years ago. Let me show you some of this. He said, "Because I'll get you on the ground." I went, "All right, I'm on the ground," and he just lay on top of me and just flattened me out. He had his hooks in. I know that now. I didn't understand what was going on at the time. He had his hooks in, and he was just. I couldn't get him off. And for a fact, I know I was physically stronger than him in an arm wrestle. Well, an arm wrestle. I couldn't get him off, and I wasn't intimidated or I wasn't scared or it didn't throw me because it was a safe environment. You know, it wasn't in the street, but I was wise enough to go, I got to figure out a way not to.
Right.
Usually when I'm performing, when I was younger, when I was sparring, I could move, you know, I had great kicks. I was very fit. I was training with people like Billy Blanks who got you in great physical condition. So you could keep that up for a while. There was not really a mental stress. I wasn't doing full contact at that point. I'd stopped boxing. I stopped doing the kickboxing stuff.
Right.
But I was under stress. So you just look at, we have to put that back into our training in Kenpo.
Yes. Hold on a second.
How you do it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We have people saying hello and some comments. Ángel Obreque, salud from Neuquén, Argentina. Saludos, Ángel. Gracias. Chris says, I have been working as a bouncer since '94 and still do, and have used the concepts and mindset of Kenpo many times. Yes. I trust in what I've learned, and Kenpo have made me a much better bouncer. Amazing. And yes, I've been in a couple of fights through the years. I bet. Yeah, great. See, that's what we're talking about. Amazing. And we have a message. Let me just bring a message before we go there. Diane Wheeler says, just left a message on your timeline, Brye, as my last one seems to have disappeared.
Oh, okay. Good to see you, Diane. How are you?
Hello there. Okay, so
I am with you. Just give me 1 sec, mate. I just noticed something. My bad.
That's fine.
Plug it in. Sorry, okay. Everybody. There we go. I know we're wrapping it up, but I didn't want the computer to die. It's a discussion that you could talk about for hours and hours and hours, because I'm sure a lot of people out there going, what are you talking about? You know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there going, yeah, but how? How do we do that? How do we put that kind of training in? That's not difficult. Again, it's just, you know, for me, it's like I develop drills and stuff to flatten certain social buttons and certain mental considerations, get into that mindset, take away those considerations, and then go, all right, now do it. Now do that particular technique or that attack or that whatever. And for the other guy, push it through. Don't hit him, but engage him. If he can stop your mask, go ahead.
I think one of the things you mentioned at the beginning of the hour of the show, you said, I forgot. Hold on. That's what I get when I'm reading messages. Okay. Willie Kelly says, Brye, we never met, but you make a lot of sense. As Jack Charlton said, put them under pressure.
That's right. Yeah. Jack Charlton's a famous English footballer back in the day. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Michael Woodshot says, hey, Brye, great to see you.
Always, mate.
Okay. So I was going to say, one of the things you mentioned that's what you get when you think out of the box. So, and also exposing yourself to different scenarios. Like one of the things that really helped me has been teaching the police. I remember there's, I'm just gonna, hold on. Another comment here. Diane Wheeler says, my first message said you are a great Kenpoist, martial artist, and natural street fighter. Loved your last teaching session in NoHo. Keep up the good work. Nice.
That's very much appreciated. Diane was one of my, Diane and I go way back to Jersey. She was one of the black. Yeah.
Mr. Higgins says, good morning, Frank and Brian. I feel the worst thing we can do is just give people a false sense of security. I think it's our responsibility to bring reality to them. Yes, sir. Yeah. Lord, I agree. So I was going to say, I remember back in, I think it was 96 or 97, I was a green belt or a brown belt back then, and I was already training with Mr. Tatum, but I was back here in Mexico, and I got to teach a police officer. I think he was some type of comandante or something like that. I don't remember. And he said, okay, so show us something. So I got one of my students and he said, throw me a right punch, right? And I stepped in and I did 5 swords. I flying like right, and I did my cover out and everything. I was a proud brown belt, and I post and everything. The whole Kenpo thing. And the police, the comandante looked at me and said, "Wow, maestro," he said, "you move very well. That was really nice," he said. I'm like, of course it was, right? I'm thinking, right? And then he said, "But that would work shit for us on the street."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we cannot do that. Any of that. No way. It doesn't work for us on the street." Meant police officers. And I'm like, damn, never thought about that, right? I mean, this was like 25 years ago. But still, that made me think out of the box. So I'm thinking now, what can I show them or teach them, right? That is not based upon destroying the person the way we do with Kenpo, right? So thinking out of the box makes you, question in a good, because you got to question the material, but in a positive way, right?
And if you do, you can always go back to it. And what I mean by that is this, because that's a great story. It's a great example because it's true. I mean, you can't, as a police officer, pretty much any in most civilized societies, you can't get away with doing these chops and strike, or whatever. You can't do that, especially in today's environment. Everybody's got a cell phone, even if the cat deserved it. You can't. You know what I mean? So you go, well, it's an interesting point. You go, he was right. You go, well, that wouldn't work for us. And then you go, well, that version of it wouldn't work for you. But how about this? If I'm being attacked and I'm a police officer and I've learned Kenpo and I'm going to try and do 5 swords, and they say, well, it wouldn't work. I'm not sure why he told you it wouldn't work. And maybe he said, well, we couldn't do that because they're going to grab us, or there's mass coming. How do we do it? And we couldn't strike them like that. We were liable. Well, you go, okay, so let's break down 5 swords then, just real fast. What's the most important thing? You got to stop the mass, right?
Of course. No. See, but my point was, I still teach 5 swords to the police officers.
Oh no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
I know that I've seen.
The point was, 25 years ago, when you're a brown belt, you don't question yourself, right? 100%. For me, when somebody questioned me, it put planted that seed in my mind to start questioning. And now, of course, I teach 5 swords, but what I do is, instead of blocking the arm, I go straight into the shoulder, and from there I do a slap, a distractor to get the person off, and then I slap him a couple of times, and then I go for the takedown, and it works perfectly.
I mean, it totally does. I mean, it's just rearranging it, or just different viewpoint. So you go just for the no, but I'm speaking. I know what you meant. I'm speaking more to the people who are watching and coming up. This is what we got going on about earlier about how we train. It's like, okay, I've learned it one way, and it's done at the end, and now they go, you're under arrest.
That's the thing.
For what? You just fucked them up. Pardon the French, everybody. Or I do the same thing like you do. I do come into the shoulder, but I use my humerus bone. I mean, Mike Dick explained this to me many years ago. Again, credit where it's due. And I'll just drop right into your body. I'll stop you. Sure. And then from there, it'll just come down. Now, if I hit here, it's going to stun you. It won't hurt you. And then we're into what? Blocking set. Lift, outward, back inward, bang down. And I have contact manipulation. So it's all about how you utilize your what are you doing to gain that contact manipulation? You see, if I have a baton, let's say, do I have to crack your skull to get you to comply?
Okay.
Or can I flip, push it into your rib cage, lock the arm, put it under your arm, and then I'll have you down?
Hold your thoughts right there.
Sorry, okay. Yeah, we're running up.
No. I want to say, this is very interesting, and we need to continue talking about this. This should be the next time you come into the show, because I think that's truly important. How to adapt your Kenpo, continue adapting what you already know, right? But setting examples like you just did. I think that's just fantastic. Let me just say one more person saying hello. Stan Hadfield says, fear and ego, fantastic analogy. Good morning from Portland. Good morning, sir. Take care. Okay, so we just ran out of time 5 minutes ago. So I know we can go on for another 2 or 3 hours.
Get together, right?
But if you just want to, say something just to wrap it up, and we'll continue talking about this in the future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great. Next time we'll touch on that and how to get below the surface. I mean, there's different layers of what you're applying, and not in the techniques. There are different layers, and they're there, and you're not going to apply that technique. So next time, hopefully, we'll talk about them, and maybe we can explain a bit more on how to make that work for people who can't put it into a full effect. They can't be too violent, or because of the political situation where they live, the different laws, whether it's police force and stuff like that. So I think that'll be a great subject. And if anybody has any questions on that for next time, write them down for Frank and myself, and we can address that for you, because that's the whole goal of this, like you were saying earlier, Frank, of what you're trying to do here is to enhance and bring it back up now into the 21st century, and bring some confidence back into what we're doing. And again, if everybody out there, I know many fantastic Kenpos who are very capable. I'm not saying that you're not. It's just my approach.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just
approach.
my approach. It's not,
And always keep it positive. And the whole idea of this coffee and martial arts is to give a positive image, create a positive environment, and stop bad-mouthing each other. That's not the way. So everything we mean here, it's to add to it. And, it's just throwing out ideas. But yes, we appreciate all of you. We appreciate all of you for sure.
And just one last thing, and you guys too. I mean, you're innovators too. You're no different. We're all the same. If you're innovative too, and you have some things to throw out, that's fantastic. We look at that and go, "Oh, that's interesting." I love to learn new stuff. I don't care if it's a white belt or a 10th degree. If you've got something that that can enhance me, because we're trying to enhance people, right? Or your show is enhancing in the martial arts. It'd be great to hear from you guys.
Yes. So thank you, everybody that watched this. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. And you guys have a great day. Take care. Chris says, thank you for a great show. Thank you, sir. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.